Rahim. This is me, Muhammad Farooq, lecturer, Department of English, Ahmedabad University of Science and Technology. Dear audience, in today's video, I am going to talk about South Asian literature in English. You see that when we study English literature, we often think that this is very much rich in terms of social, cultural, political, and other values of English nation. This is somehow true. But let me tell you, South Asian literature in English is also very much enriched in terms of all these mentioned elements and factors. South Asian literature in English is basically a kind of literature, it's a kind of body of literature that has been composed by a number of writers from South Asian countries. And these writers, they include, that the nationalities of Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Iran, etc. You know that South Asian literature in English, it is unique in its style and in respect of content as well. In respect of style, it is unique in the way that it has used the local languages in writing style. You know that although it is written in English language, but it is punctuated by Hinko, punctuated by that uh, Hindi language, punctuated by Urdu language, punctuated by Pashto language, punctuated by Afghani languages, and so on and so forth. This is one thing. And secondly, so far thematic level is concerned, this talks about, I mean, South Asian literature in English. It is about the localized and indigenized themes of South Asia, and these themes, they basically include the theme of that partition in of 1947 in India and Pakistan, because this was a great and traumatic event in the history of subcontinent. And similarly, it talks about the theme of colonization, that when that any foreign stronger nation starts ruling some other weaker nation forcefully. This is what the act of colonization is. We see the arrival of British Raj in South Asia in the form of trade company, and often they come on three important and celebrated slogans such as commerce, Christianity, and civilization. So colonization is perhaps the second important theme of South Asian literature in English. Similarly, South Asian literature in English deals with the theme of multiculturalism. You know that South Asia is enriched in terms of different ethnics, political, cultural, and other groups of people living in this particular region. So they are from different backgrounds, they have different cultures, they speak different languages, they have different rituals, they have different that religions, and so on and so forth. So this pluralism is what the beauty of South Asian uh, nation or South Asian countries. And this pluralism results in multiculturalism. So writers from South Asia, they often they are seen to talk about the theme of multiculturalism. And similarly, we have another important issue, that is identity crisis, the crisis of identity, because most of the writers from South Asian literature, they are basically diaspora writer, and diaspora are those communities who have some time ago they have left their homelands, and they are that living in abroad, in America, in Canada, in England, and they are looking back. You know that most of the people from South Asia, and particularly from third world countries, they have migrated to advanced and to the first world countries of the world. But when we go there and they are not accepted as a first citizen of the country, and they in this way face the crisis of identity, and they look back to their origin, and they try to remember their past, and in this way they become the victim of nostalgia, and this is what leading towards the crisis of identity. Although in postmodern world nowadays it is useless to talk about identity. It's not a kind of fixed that dilemma or phenomena or entity. Yet this is there, this theme of identity crisis is there in the novels of South Asian writers. Then we have the theme of political restlessness. That South Asian country, particularly Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, they are politically extremely destabilized countries of the world, and who are that enchanting the slogan although of democracy, that is the rule of people for the people and by the people. But this is not the case in reality. What is the case that although if anywhere there is democracy, it's a kind of so-called democracy, or it's a kind of hybrid democracy. And so we see that, for example, in Pakistan, the government is elected or selected. We are not going to discuss this thing, but in the middle of that tenure, the government is broken down, and that the new government that announces election and so on and so forth. So this political restlessness has always been a very much uh, hot issue in South Asian countries. Then we have another theme, that is the theme of sectarianism. That is, earlier I mentioned that South Asia is that plural in term of religions, Hindus, Sikh, Muslim, Buddhist, and other communities from belonging from different ethnic groups. They're living in South Asia. So particularly, there is a kind of that clash among these sects, and this clash among these sects is known to be the practice or the phenomena or the dilemma of sectarianism. Is in Pakistan among among Muslim, Shia, Sunni, Brelvi, there is a kind of clash, that we find and we come across. So this is what has been recorded by these writers in their novels. Then we have the theme of globalization. That globalization is a kind of that dilemma. It's kind of phenomena that is very much linked, and it has deep implications with economy. So how market is being governed, how capitalistic system is being governed, how the poor is becoming poorer day by day and the rich is becoming richer day by day, and how there is un that equal distribution of the wealth in the society, in the community. And similarly, the rule of foreign in the form of different NGOs, in the form of different welfare projects, although they enchant the slogan of the development of the people, but on the name of globalization, people, they are being actually exploited, they are being marginalized, and they are being that dislocated and distorted from their that homes and their from their communities. So this is also one of the important themes of South Asian literature in English. Then we have the theme of exile, migration, and dislocation. That as earlier I mentioned that most of the writers from South Asian countries, they are diaspora. They are, that migrants writers. They have moved from their homelands and they have joined the social, cultural, and political norms of host countries. So, in this way, they often talk about that what sort of process uh, they have passed through the process of migration, it's not a kind of that a smooth process. That migrants, they are often categorized into three categories. One, refugees, who are forcefully that they forcefully leave their country. They are enforced to leave their countries on account of some disaster, on account of some war is during the civil war of Afghanistan. Most of the Afghani people, they migrated to Pakistan, and they have been living here since civil war of Afghanistan. And similarly, through the age of partition, most of the uh, Hindus, they left Pakistan and they joined India, and most of the Muslims, they left India and they joined Pakistan. So how this experience of migration and exile and dislocation is significant, and it is bearing pen stories, and people, they were dislocated, and they were that became homeless, and they departed from their dears and nearest ones. So this is what important theme of South Asian literature in English. Then uh, a number of uh, novels have also been written on politics of South Asia. For example, Muhammad Hanif, one of the important Pakistani writers, has written A Case of Exploding Mangoes, in which he has given a very much, that uh, deep description with the help of satire, and that is about the ruling time of General Zia. So this is what these are important themes of South Asian literature in English. If we talk about the names of different South Asian writers in English, South Asian writers, then we have from Pakistan, Mohsin Hamid, who is that quite emerging and young uh, writer from Pakistan, and he is Pakistani American. He left Pakistan when he was just 5 to 6 years old. He graduated from America, from one of the important and reputed universities of America, and there he was quite settled when he was disturbed by an incident, that is the incident of 9/11, that almost that moved the whole world, and particularly the people from South Asian countries, because they were being suspected by Americans as a terrorist or extremist or fundamentalist, and so on and so forth. So Mohsin Hamid has written four important novels. The Reluctant Fundamentalist, that is about the very incident of 9/11 and his experience in America, how he was badly treated and how he was deported back to Pakistan, and how he tried, that proving his loyalty for America, that I'm lover of America, I want to be an American, and so on and so forth. But in spite of all these, that things, he was rejected, and he was banished out of the country. And in this, the title of the novel, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, clearly shows that Mohsin Hamid, through the character of protagonist Genghis Khan in the novel, wants to let the American knows that I am not fundamentalist, but he is being mistreated so much that he finally becomes a reluctant fundamentalist, an unwilling fundamentalist. And the novel focuses, as earlier I mentioned, that South Asian literature is about multiculturalism, it is about the crisis of identity. So this particular novel is about the crisis of identity, that Mohsen Hamid, through the character of Genghis Khan, uh, conveys us that how he became a shattered and scattered personality, and he was, according to Homi Ke Baba, the concept of Homi ke Baba. He was in third space, and he was neither purely a Pakistani nor American, yet Pakistani and American at the same time. His second novel is Moth Smoke, that recalls the the duration of Mughal Empire in South Asia and subcontinent particularly, and how that there are different classes in the society, and the upper class is exploiting the lower middle class, and how the politicians they are corrupt. And similarly, his third novel is How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. It's a kind of satire. That people, how they get rich, but they become filthy rich in South Asia through unfair means, by blacking monies, for example, by that making corruption, by using references, and by supporting the political people unfairly, and so on and so forth. So how to become filthy rich in rising Asia? If you are the corrupt one, if you are the dishonest, if you are that not sincere one, and if you use these unfair materials and means, then you become a filthy rich in South Asia. And his final novel is titled as a Exit West, and that is that uh, can be best read in the context of postmodernism. That in postmodernism, there is no fixed identity, there is no fixed nationalism, uh, there is nothing fixed. And perhaps that at this point Mohsin Hamid uh, has become so much matured that he left these little things to be discussed, for example, the nationality and cultural values. In this novel, he seems to propagate that the whole world is like a globalized village. People, they have become global citizen of the world, and they feel at home in any part of the world, and they have become cosmopolitans, and the idea of globalization is being propagated, and so on and so forth. Then we have another writer from Pakistan, uh, Mohsin Hamid. After Mohsin Hamid, Bapsi Sidhwa. She is from Lahore, and she is also Pakistani American, and she has written three or four important novels. The very important one is Ice Candy Man, that is about one of the important uh, dilemma, one of the important traumatic events of in the history of subcontinent. That is that the incident of partition of 1947. That partition of 1947, it brought huge destruction, and that terrible disaster for the people of subcontinent. And this novel, Ice Candy Man, subtitled as a Cracking India, it talks about the suffering of people during the history of partition, that how they became homeless, they were dislocated mentally, they went mad, some of them on account of the departure of their dear ones, and how children particularly, and women, they were doubly marginalized, and women, they were that kidnapped, and they were raped, and they were thrown back to their homes, and they were not that accepted by their family members, and in this way they uh, went twice victimized, and so on and so forth. Bapsi Sidhwa is somehow different while narrating or describing the event of 1947, I mean partition. She seems to be more neutral in comparison to other writers of South Asia, because she equally blames to everybody, including Muslim, Hindu, Sikhs, and other, that Christians being equal contributors in the destruction of humanity during the event of partition of 1947. Then we have Nadeem Aslam from Pakistan, and he has written a beautiful novel titled as a Vested Vigil. Vested Vigil, what a beautiful title this is, that Bekar ka Jagna, Vested Vigil. Vigil mean to be the to be awake. You know that. So, Vested Vigil. This novel is about Afghan war, and the writer is of the view that although people all over the world they think that this was a kind of that uh, civil war between Mujahideen and the local government of Afghanistan. Hence, the writer is of the view that it was planted by America, and there was the interruption of some foreign power in this war. Then we have Muhammad Hanif from Pakistan. He is a journalist and a novelist as well, and he has written about the political conditions uh, during the rule of General Zia, during the dictatorship of General Zia, and he has, beautifully criticized, and he has made satire on the concept of Islamization that was imposed by General Zia, and he is of the view in this novel that religion card was played by General Zia, and he was misusing religion for the sake of his political agendas. Then, similarly, from Pakistan, we have Kamla Shamsi and Muniza Shamsi, daughter and mother. And Kamla Shamsi, she has written Burnt Shadows and Cartography. These are two her famous novels. So far, Muniza Shamsi is concerned, she has written a non-fictional book titled as a Hybrid Tapestries, and this book is a kind of critical review of all the writings in South Asian literature, and it's very much helpful in order to understand uh, the stance and the views of these writers from South Asia. If we talk about India, then we have Arundhati Roy is a famous writer. She is an activist. She is a feminist. She is a political activist as well, and she has written a beautiful novel, The God of Small Thing, that is a political satire. And through this novel, she is criticizing the corruption of local politicians, and she is of the view that even the government of local people, the government of politician is worse than the government of British Raj, because these politicians they leave no stone unturned in exploiting the local people, and the people they are left ignorant, they are not being educated, then they on the name of globalization and on the name of projects they are being dislocated from their territories and from their homes and so on and so forth. She has also written non-fictional book, and one of the essays is important one titled as the end of imagination, and in this essay she has openly targeted uh, the concept of atomic energy and the concept of nuclear power, and she's of the view that these things are that nonsensical and they are not for the betterment of humanity, rather they are the source of destruction for humanity. And she is of the view that by creating atom bomb we are basically challenging the authority of God, that if you can create we can destroy. So this is the way that she is talking, and she is also seen as a that political activist, and she is often seen as a speaking as a speaker against the government of Modi in India. Then we have Salman Rushdie, who has written on the traumatic event of partition of 1947 in India. Um, his celebrated novel as a Midnight Children is very much famous, and along with him there is Kiran Desai, who has written Inheritance of Lost. And similarly, Zulfikar Ghosh from India is currently living in America, a diaspora writer. He is a poet and novelist as well, and he has written a novel, Murder of Aziz Khan. And similarly, in terms of poetry, has written beautiful poems recalling the nostalgic feelings for past. For example, This Landscape, These People, one of his most important poems, is giving us the description, a comparative, that analysis of his life in India and America. When he was in India, he is recalling the streets of India and the spices, uh, foods of India, and there was that a kind of hustle and bustle in India. But when he went to America, in England, sorry, then he somewhere says in his poems that I am just like some sort of strange thing behind the glass, in the behind the glass, who can just can witness the thing and cannot enjoy the thing. And he compares himself to a fish, to the movement of a fish. That is very much significant, that when you see a fish moving, it does not move in straight way, rather it that it moves in a zigzag way. And this is the way that a migrant moves, and this is the way that the life of the migrants moves ahead. So this is what full of nostalgic feeling. And then we have Uh, another important writer from India, Jhumpa Lahiri. She has written uh, different novels, particularly The Lowland and The Namesake. And these novels are dealing about the theme of identity of diaspora and the issues of migrants people. Then we have from Afghanistan, Khalid Hosseini, one of the important writers, and he has written three important novels: The Kite Runner, and The Mountain Echoed, and A Thousand Splendid Suns. And these novels, they are dealing with the issues of migrants. And similarly, we have Dr. Abdul Hamid from Afghanistan, who is chiefly a medical doctor, but he has also written some of the precious pieces of literature in Pashto language. So far Bangladesh is concerned, we have Munika Ali, who has written beautiful novel Brickland, and similarly Shamim Azad, she has written Life of Mr. Aziz. So these are some of the writers from South Asian countries. If we sum up the whole lecture, then we can see that South Asian literature in English is basically a body of literature that has been composed by different writers from South Asian countries, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and uh, Iran, etc. And then uh, this South Asian literature in English basically deals with the theme of partition of 1947, political restlessness in uh, the region of South Asia, the theme of colonization, multiculturalism, identity crisis, sectarianism, globalization, exile, migration, and dislocation. And all these themes, they have been beautifully constructed in local languages, in regional languages, but generally in English language, because these writers, they are after all under the influence of English writers. And one thing that I forgot, that South Asian poetry in English is also very much enriched. As earlier I mentioned the name of Zulfikar Bose, and similarly another important name is Tawfiq Rafet from Pakistan. He is from Lahore, currently living in America, and he is known as, that the most uh, influential poets in South Asian literature in English, and he is considered to be free from the influence of other English writers. And important thing is that he is known as a romantic poet in South Asian literature in English, and he has given his own indigenized account of romanticism in South Asia. His most important poem is The Arrival of Monsoon, and similarly the wedding in flood. So this lecture is, I think, sufficient enough in order to have a clear idea about the introduction of South Asian literature in English. In the preceding video, I shall try to, that systematically discuss each writer in detail with regard to these mentioned themes. I thank you very much. Stay at home and be blessed. Thank you.